If your backyard looks like a battlefield, you're probably living in Rudraprayag in 1918. If you hear something stalking at night, you'd better pray it's not the Leopard. And if you're Jim Corbett, you're about to become a legend. Picture this, a sleepy Indian village gripped by terror night after night. The Leopard of Rudraprayag, with a taste for human flesh, had outsmarted hunters for years. Over 125 victims vanished without a trace. Enter Jim Corbett, famed for tracking the untrackable. Armed only with his wits, a rifle, and nerves of steel, Corbett spent months in the jungle, waiting, listening, and following the faintest clues. Every shadow held danger. Every rustle could be his last. The hunt built to a breathless climax, a heartbeat, a flash of movement, then one crack of the rifle. At last, the nightmare was over. Jim Corbett didn't just hunt a leopard, he faced fear itself and won. That's why his story still echoes through the hills of India today.
Begins like a secret word hidden in the darkness. Then electronic drum.
There are few places opportunists. After the devastating influenza epidemic, the war fever, as it was known, swept through India in 1918, and in the wake of other outbreaks like cholera, the traditional rites of cremation were often neglected due to the sheer pressed by the desperate pleas of its people, sent units of Gurkha soldiers, men renowned for their courage. Affairs born of tragedy, I felt a profound responsibility towards the people of these hills, among whom I had spent so much of my life, to ignore their plea, to know that men, women, and children were living in constant mortal fear while I perhaps had the means to help, was unthinkable. And so arrangements were made. I gathered my equipment, my trusted .275 Rigby rifle, which had served me well in the past, a shotgun for close quarters, Jungle, oak and pine forests interspersed with terraced fields and small villages cut through by deep ravines and roaring streams. The pilgrim road itself snaked through this vast area. Tracking a single, immensely cunning animal in such an environment was a monumental challenge. It could strike in one valley one night and be 20 extreme that it detected the danger. We found faint bloodstains nearby, suggesting it might have suffered a minor injury, perhaps to a paw. This only added to its legend. Not even steel traps could hold it, only wound it, making it potentially even more dangerous and unpredictable. The feeling of being watched, which I had experienced near Rudraprayag, returned with unsettling frequency during this period. There were times, moving silently through the jungle or sitting in a mashal, when the hairs on the back of my neck would prickle as if unseen eyes were following me. Was it simply nerves, the strain of the long hunt, playing tricks on my senses, or was the leopard, intelligent and curious, sometimes turning the tables and observing its pursuer? On one occasion, while examining tracks near a ravine, I heard a distinct pebble dislodged from the slope above me. I looked up, instantly, rifle ready, scanning the dense undergrowth. Nothing was there. But the feeling persisted. It was a deeply unnerving sensation, adding a psychological dimension to the physical hardship of the hunt. The hunter was perhaps also being hunted. Weeks turned into months. The leopard continued to kill, sometimes far from where I had concentrated my efforts, almost mocking my attempts to predict its movements. There were periods of intense frustration, days when every track led to a dead end and every vigil proved fruitless. The monsoon rains arrived, washing away tracks and making movement difficult, adding a damp misery to the already challenging conditions. Doubt, an unwelcome companion on any long hunt, began to creep in. Was this animal truly supernatural? Was I capable of ending its reign? There were times when I had to retreat, return to Rudraprayag, or even back to my home in Nainital for short periods to rest, resupply, and rethink my strategy. The physical toll was considerable, but the mental strain was worse. Constant alertness, the weight of responsibility, and the recurring image of the victims were my unrelenting companions. During one such lull, needing a break from the oppressive focus on the man-eater, I indulged in a brief fishing interlude on the Alaknanda River. The river, though flowing through the heart of the leopard's territory, offered a different perspective, a connection to the more natural rhythms of the wild. Casting a line for Mazir, feeling the powerful surge of a fish on the rod, watching kingfishers dive, these simple acts were a necessary balm to my frayed nerves. They were a reminder that amidst the terror, life in its myriad forms continued. Even here, though, the shadow lingered. A fresh set of leopard tracks on a sandy riverbank one morning served as a stark reminder that the man-eater was never far. Away, its presence permeating every aspect of life in the region. The failure of the gin traps led me to the consideration of poison. I managed to obtain cyanide, a deadly poison intending to lace a kill with it should the opportunity arise. Soon after, the leopard killed a goat near the village of Dandali. This seemed the perfect chance. Working quickly and carefully, I inserted capsules of cyanide into the uneaten portion of the carcass, concealing my work meticulously. I withdrew, hoping the leopard would return and consume the poison. The following morning, I approached the kill with extreme caution. The carcass had been further devoured, but the leopard was nowhere to be seen. Had the poison worked? Had the beast crawled away to die? I searched the area thoroughly but found nothing. Days passed, and then came the news. Another human kill, miles away. The poison attempt had failed. Either the leopard had detected the poison, its constitution was strong enough to withstand it, or perhaps it simply had not eaten the poisoned portions. Another method exhausted, another failure added to the growing list. Close calls continued to punctuate the long months of the hunt. One evening, sitting up in a mashan over a live goat, I heard the unmistakable sound of the leopard approaching. It moved cautiously through the undergrowth, circling the bait. I could hear its soft footfalls and even the low, guttural growls as it assessed the situation. It came closer, a dark shape in the deepening twilight. I raised my rifle, aligning the sights on the dim form. My finger tightened on the trigger. Just as I was about to fire, the goat, sensing the predator, made a sudden, violent movement and pulled its tethering rope taut. The unexpected lurch startled the leopard. In a flash, it melted back into the jungle, gone. The chance had been there, measured in seconds and lost in an instant. Moments like that were agonizing, testing the limits of patience and resolve. Each failure, each narrow escape was a lesson. It taught me of the leopard's extraordinary intelligence, its caution, its sheer unpredictability. It reinforced the vital importance of meticulous attention to detail, the direction of the wind, the concealment of the mashon, the silence of my own movements. It demanded infinite patience, the ability to endure hours, days, even weeks of fruitless waiting. It underscored the constant, pervasive danger. A single slip, a moment's carelessness could easily reverse the roles of hunter and hunted. The ordeal continued, a relentless cycle of hope, effort, frustration, and the ever-present chilling terror inspired by the ghost leopard of Rudraprayag. The long months of the hunt wore on, marked by relentless effort and agonizing near misses. The strain was immense, a constant oscillation between heightened alertness and bone-deep weariness. There were interludes, moments snatched away from the all-consuming focus on the man-eater. One such respite came when I had a chance encounter with a sounder of wild boar near a village where I was tracking. Although unrelated to the leopard, the brief, intense hunt for a large boar was a stark reminder of the other dangers and dramas that were a constant part of jungle life, and it perhaps honed the tracking skills and reflexes that would soon be needed. But the shadow of the leopard was never far. My vigils continued, often in precarious locations, dictated by the animal's movements rather than my own comfort. One such vigil remains etched in my memory. I was perched high in the branches of a solitary pine tree, overlooking a narrow ravine. The leopard had killed nearby, and this tree offered the only good vantage point. Climbing it in the fading light was difficult enough. Perching on a narrow branch for hours through the cold mountain night was an exercise in endurance. Every muscle ached, sleep was an impossibility, and every sound of the jungle seemed amplified. The rustle of wind in the pines, the distant bark of a kakar, the screech of an owl. At one point, stones clattered in the ravine below. My heart leaped, every sense on fire. I peered into the inky darkness, rifle clutched tightly. Was it him? The sounds faded, and nothing emerged into the faint moonlight filtering through the trees. Whether it was the man-eater passing below or some other creature of the night, I never knew. The night passed without incident, leaving only the memory of cold, discomfort, and the gnawing tension of the unseen threat. It was during this prolonged hunt that I experienced a night of terror, unlike any I had known, even in my encounters with man-eating tigers. I was staying alone in a small, dilapidated stone hut near a village that had recently suffered a loss. The hut offered minimal protection. The door was flimsy, and the single window was unbarred. I had my rifle, of course, and Robin was with me, but the atmosphere felt particularly oppressive. Sleep was fitful. Sometime after midnight, Robin let out a low, guttural growl, nuzzling close against me on the rough cot. I sat up instantly, listening intently. Silence. Then a faint scratching sound at the door. My blood ran cold. Was it trying the door? The scratching stopped, followed by a soft thud against the wood, as if something heavy leaned against it. I could hear breathing, low and guttural, just outside. There was no doubt. The ghost leopard was there, inches away, separated only by a few planks of rotting wood. Should I fire through the door? The risk of merely wounding it, making it even more dangerous, was too great. Should I try to open the door and confront it? That would be suicide. I sat frozen, rifle aimed at the door, every nerve screaming. Robin trembled beside me. Minutes stretched into an eternity, each second thick with suffocating dread. The breathing continued, then faded. More scratching, this time at the base of the wall. Was it trying to claw its way in as it had done elsewhere? Suddenly silence returned, deeper and more menacing than before. Had it gone? Or was it waiting, circling, testing? I remained awake, rigid with tension, until the first grey light of dawn filtered through the cracks. Only then did I dare open the door. Pug marks, clear and large in the soft earth outside, confirmed my fear. It had circled the hut, tested the door, probed the walls. Why it left, I will never know. Perhaps some sound from within, or some instinct, had warned it off. But that night left an indelible mark. I, the hunter, had felt the chilling vulnerability of the hunted. Another strange incident occurred shortly after. Reports came in of loud roaring and fighting sounds heard near a remote village one night. Investigating the area the next day, I found signs of a violent struggle, patches of torn earth, snapped saplings, and leopard pug marks of 2 different sizes, accompanied by bloodstains. It seemed the man-eater had encountered another leopard, perhaps a male intruding on its territory, or a female it was attempting to court. They had fought savagely. While intriguing, this offered little direct help in my hunt, other than confirming the man-eater was still active and dominant in its territory, capable of driving off rivals even while carrying injuries from traps or previous encounters. The culmination of the long hunt arrived, as such things often do, unexpectedly, yet as the result of relentless persistence. It was early May 1926. 10 weeks had passed since I had seriously resumed the hunt after a break. I had gathered intelligence suggesting the leopard was frequenting the area around the Pilgrim Road near Rudraprayag itself. I decided on a final, carefully planned vigil. Selecting a spot above the road where the leopard was likely to pass, I concealed myself meticulously behind a large boulder, shoring a clear line of fire down the path. The wait began as dusk settled. The usual sounds of the evening faded, replaced by the deep silence of the coming night. Hours passed. The moon rose, casting eerie shadows. Doubt, my old companion whispered in my ear. Was this another fruitless vigil? Suddenly, a flicker of movement on the road below. My senses snapped to attention. A shape materialized from the shadows, moving with silent confidence along the path. It paused, sniffing the air. It was him, the ghost leopard. Larger than I had imagined, sleek and powerful in the moonlight. Time seemed to stop. There could be no mistake this time. I raised the Rigby slowly and deliberately, settling the sights on the vital spot just behind the shoulder. The report of the rifle shattered the night's silence, echoing off the surrounding hills. The leopard leapt convulsively, then crumpled onto the road. I remained frozen, watching intently and instinctively reloading. It did not move. After several long minutes, heart pounding, I approached cautiously. The man-eating leopard of Rudraprayag, the phantom that had terrorized Garhwal for 8 years, lay still. The long ordeal was finally over. The sound of the shot, so final and definitive, seemed to hang in the night air long after the echoes faded. For a moment, the world held its breath. Then, cautiously, figures began to emerge from the nearby houses in Rudraprayag, drawn by the rifle's report, a sound they had both feared and hoped for. Seeing me approach the still form on the road, a murmur ran through the small crowd that gathered. A mix of disbelief, trepidation, and dawning hope. Was it truly over? Was the devil, the ghost that had haunted their nights for so long, finally vanquished? Confirmation came quickly. As lanterns were brought closer, illuminating the magnificent, albeit terrifying creature, there was no doubt. It was the man-eater. A large, powerful male leopard. Past his prime, perhaps, but still formidable. The relief that washed over the assembled villagers was palpable, almost overwhelming. Men clasped my hands, women wept openly, and quiet words of gratitude were murmured. The oppressive weight of fear that they had carried for 8 long years began to lift, replaced by a tentative, fragile sense of liberation. The news spread like wildfire through the valleys, carried by word of mouth, bringing an end to the nightly siege across hundreds of square miles. Later, examining the leopard more closely, I noted several interesting details. It was indeed an old animal, as evidenced by the wear on its teeth, yet it was in surprisingly fine condition otherwise, showing no signs of the debilitating injuries that might have forced it onto human prey out of desperation, unlike some of the man-eating tigers I had encountered. There were healed scars, likely from traps or encounters with other animals, including perhaps a slight deformity on one paw, possibly sustained in the gin trap near Golabray. These injuries, however, were long healed and did not seem sufficient to prevent it from hunting its natural prey. This reinforced my belief that its man-eating habits had originated from scavenging during the epidemic's years earlier, a taste acquired and then pursued through calculated predation. Bringing this hunt to a close brought me immense relief, but also a deep sense of melancholy. Staring down at the vanquished predator, I felt not triumph, but sadness. Sadness for the immense suffering it had caused, and for the circumstances that had likely twisted its nature. Taking any life, even one that has caused such terror, is a somber affair. The true reward for me was not in the kill itself, but in the knowledge that the people of Garhwal could finally sleep without fear, that children could play without constantly looking over their shoulders, that travelers could walk these mountain roads again with hope rather than dread. The hunt for the man-eating Leopard of Rudraprayag was one of the longest and most challenging undertakings of my life. It tested my skills, my patience, and my nerve to the absolute limits. It taught me humility in the face of nature's complexity and the extraordinary cunning an animal can develop when its survival depends on outwitting humans. It also deepened my respect for the resilience and courage of the hill folk who endured such an ordeal with stoicism and fortitude. Today, near the spot where the leopard fell on that May night in 1926, a simple sign stands as a memorial. It marks the end of a specific reign of terror, the laying to rest of the ghost leopard, For me, it serves as a reminder of a difficult duty performed, of the intricate and often tragic relationship between man and the wild, and of the enduring spirit of the people who call the Garhwal Himalayas their home. The shadow had passed, the ghost was laid to rest, and the rivers once again flowed through valleys where peace, however hard won, had finally returned.